Hello and welcome to Clamp, the weekly podcast where we discuss all things related to creating, living, and making projects. I'm Grant Alexander. Joining me as always is Adam Mackey, and for the last time, Morley Kurt.
Hello.
You heard that? Yeah, hello. You heard that right. This is going to be Morley's last episode. If you couldn't guess from the title, we haven't titled it yet, but we're assuming it's going to say something that that mentions it. So if you couldn't guess from the title, this is Morley's last episode. So we're going to do something a little different than our normal episodes, and we're not going to have a topic. Instead, we're going to have a little reminiscing about the fun times we've had in the 120-ish episodes that Morley has joined us, and, thank him for his service and have a nice little send-off.
Well, thank you guys. And so to give some context to the listeners, I told Adam and Grant last week after recording the after show, so not even the Patreon people heard about this in advance, that it is time for my time on Clamp to come to an end. I really feel like I just want to focus my creative energies on videos and other projects and have time for family and, taking care of myself. And it just feels like, the right time to end my time on the podcast. But like Grant said, we had a fantastic run, 120 odd episodes. And now it is in the very capable hands of Mr. Mackey and Mr. Alexander. That is, totally up to them what that future may look like. But I'm super grateful for all these episodes, all the conversations and insights, and definitely all the connections I've made with the people who've listened. I was lucky to meet a bunch of them at Maker Camp. And one of the things we were talking about after the after show or during the after show last week was how well the podcast is doing, which made, sharing this hard news with them all the harder. Because, I will say, I think something ending when things are going bad is worse than ending, in my opinion, when things are going good. I would rather end on a high than end on a low. Of course, there's some opportunity cost, missed opportunity there, but, end on a high, I think, is a good way to go.
Well, I want to be clear for anyone listening. You're the one ending. Clamp is continuing.
Yes, 100%.
I don't know if we share. I don't think I shared it with you, but obviously you could have context clued, put it together because of the things we've talked about in the background. But Clamp is going to be continuing. We are in discussion with a few different people to potentially come on as the third co-host. If things don't line up in the meantime, we're going to be probably having a couple of guest co-hosts until we are able to secure a full-time third person. If that's something you're super interested in, send your resume over to the Clampcast Instagram and let us know what you bring to the table, and we'll entertain all people.
Yeah, make them do a 1-minute audition video. Those are a lot of fun. I had to do one of those this week, and it probably took about an hour of attempts.
Right. So definitely you have to do a 1-minute audition video, post it as a reel, and tag Clampcast. Up to 1 minute, post it as a reel, tag Clampcast. Make sure you have your best podcasting voice. And don't forget we do video, so do your makeup.
I like this idea.
Yeah, but in reality, if you're interested, just send us a message. But we are talking with some people, so I hope you don't feel bad if we don't choose you.
Yeah. Chances are next episode we might already have someone. You just don't know.
There you go.
Well,
yeah, we're currently talking with some people, like I said, but I don't want to mention any names in case those things don't go through.
Nothing's confirmed.
We
Exactly.
Obviously it's been a very quick turnaround, as Morley mentioned. He mentioned it to us last week after the recording on Wednesday night. and then I immediately drove 14 hours over 2 days. Spent the entire time, the next 3 days blacksmithing and woodworking, and then drove 14 more hours, and then we're basically got 1 day where I could actually, try and have conversations with people, because my Google thing won't text people because I don't know, I haven't set it up, so I can't while I'm driving text and drive. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Let's be more intentional about our time this episode, and maybe think about, like, what was one of your favorite episodes?
So this is super topical. This is a coincidence. This was not sort of planned in advance. So one of my biggest regrets in life is that I didn't make a video about stealing my bike back, because it would have been such a good video. And in thinking a little bit more creatively about what my videos can be, I think I've figured out a way to make a video about it in retrospect. So I think I'm gonna do it. Like, it's not 100% confirmed, but I have an idea that I think will be really good. And I was just, so when this happened, this was August of 2020. So if I came on the podcast in April, it must have been around like episode 30 or 40. I feel like my math might be a little off there. But I was going through the Discord when I was basically live texting all of the events as they were as unfolding to the Makers on Zoom Having Coffee group and screenshotting them for like overlay in the video. And I was texting the Makers on Zoom Having Coffee group and my like friends from home group at the same time. And everyone in both groups, it's like, this is the craziest story I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I it's funny. When I was looking through the text, I think I want to say it was Austin who was saying like, make sure you turn your phone sideways when you film it. And it just went right over my head. I didn't even like consider filming it after he said that.
Yeah. Well, so one thing I did at High Caliber Camp is I've got a little GoPro session, and I mounted it on a selfie stick, and I put it in my cargo pants, have like a little pocket for a screwdriver or something. And I put that in there. So at any moment's notice, driving down the road, anything, I could easily have access to a camera, pull it out. And if you've used the session, it's a 1-click button and it starts filming.
Did you end up using it?
Yeah, I used it lots. It was super helpful to have. Sorry?
Did you remember the batteries?
Well, this one's got a battery that's included in it, but yes, I did remember the batteries. Yeah. So that's something you should. I know you got a phone on you at all times, but in case you've ever come across a cheap session or other cheap small camera, it's something that you might want to consider to have with you as a super convenient get some footage.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good idea.
I agree that story. I think if you like people who've just listened to it as the Clamp Classic or listened to it back in August of 2020, would hear us laughing so much. That was one of the best stories, and I think it's a testament to how even in podcasts the title matters, because it was our worst it's still like I think it's our worst performing episode ever.
And the re-upload,
it's doing
better.
great.
It's
doing so much better than the original.
Well, I think you need a focused title on any content. You can't try to hit on two totally different things. Like, we had a topic of talking about our dream shop or dream project or something, and then it was also this story. And in the title, we tried to encapsulate both of those things, which only ends up being confusing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it's exactly what happened. So I think it was we learned a lot in that episode, and we had a great time with that story.
Yeah,
definitely.
Is there, Adam? Is there an episode that you fondly remember from the time that Morley was with us?
Honestly, the one that sticks out the most is the camping stories.
Oh yeah,
because it was the first time that you guys met face to face, and it was just very interesting to hear the stories, and there was videos to go with it. So
I would not have expected that one.
Yeah, for me, I wanted to talk about that one. So it's interesting that you enjoyed it as well. That was like episode 22, I think, was canoe clamping was the episode, if anyone wants to go back and listen. And Morley made a spoon, and I made a leather sheath. I believe I won an Instructables with that leather sheath and made it to the homepage. So thank you for that, Morley.
Sorry for like no audible reaction. I was typing so like I mentioned last week, I really need to upgrade my computer. And when I'm on a video call, I can really only do like one operation at a time. And I was trying to type in this mention and then like it just wasn't working. Yes. Yeah. I'm happy you won the contest.
Well, one that stands out to me, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was a topic that you brought up, was the taste gap. I think. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you brought it up or if I brought it up, but I know we'd both heard about it before we talked about it. So the Ira Glass taste gap episode, and it's something that I refer to like all the time. I even this week sent someone a message, and they were talking about it was Dave Bauer, and he was making something with Steve House or at Maker Camp, and he was talking about how the one that's this whatever he was making, Steve House made the same thing as a teaching example, and Steve was like, "This is complete and utter garbage," and then he looked at his own and went, "No, yours is like perfect in comparison to mine," and I was like, "That's the taste gap, right?" And I know Steve House has suffered from this before because he's like made a bunch of knives and waited like a year to finish them, and then looked back at them and said, "These are complete and utter garbage. I can't sell them." Right. Mm-hmm. And so he like gave them away to his patrons. So it's like that kind of thing where you go, if you had finished them at the time and sold them at the time, you would have been completely happy. But that jump in skill and looking back at your earlier projects, you no longer feel like they're good enough.
Right. I think that's part of the reason why I rush on videos sometimes, because by the time I'm in the editing stage, I've already like done a bunch of filming, and it feels like there's only so much I can do in the editing stage. And so I'm like, okay, like this is like 60% of the work is already done. So now I need to like deal with this work quickly so I can move on to the next thing and sort of jump up a level. And it's hard to strike that balance between taking time on something and wanting to do it quickly. I
think it's also something that you go, if you had gotten better, you look back at your earlier footage and go, fuck, I totally fucked that up. I should have done this from this. I should have done this. I should have done that. Right. So if you're editing on the fly, editing as you're going, you don't question the video that you just took that day.
For sure. Yeah, that definitely helps. In fact, I was thinking about this today because I'm probably going to be making this kind of documentary style video about someone else. And I was trying to think, I'm like, okay, do I want to do the interview with him in the morning and then get all the B-roll in the afternoon? Or do I want to go the night before, do the interview in his shop when it's all quiet, and then get the B-roll the next day? And I'm like, I can just go back again. This doesn't all have to fit into one day. Like I can just take more time on it. That's totally fine.
Right. You can even ask more questions. Like, there's nothing stopping you from going, I thought of an even better question to ask now that I've edited a little bit more.
Definitely.
One thing I'll say, and I don't know how you're planning on it, I really, really appreciate when someone is doing a documentary style something or whatever, and they're interviewing someone, that they also have a camera pointed at them. So I don't know if you're planning on having both like two cameras, but I really feel like if you're going to have them on tripods or whatever, or even if you're hand holding one, having one pointed at you to get reactions if they say something.
Yeah.
Right. Because I get it's about the other person, but the channel's you. Right.
For sure. And I was actually thinking about how to balance that today. Exactly what you said, because it's on my channel and how's it going to fit into all of that. I was thinking about like Casey Neistat did a video a long time ago, I think he's done a few interviews. Like he did one with Logan Paul. He did one with, I think, Jocko Willink, the ex-Navy SEAL. And I think in both of those, they're both sitting at a table side by side and like looking at each other.
Right.
So yeah,
I don't know if they had a 3, but it's often a 3 camera. When you have that, I would do a 3 camera setup.
Oh, this was, I mean, in these videos, it was very YouTuber. It was one camera pointing at them, kind of talking to each other at a table.
Okay. Well, I would do a 3 camera setup. One on each one of your faces and a third with both of you in it. And that would give you all the angles. Like that is something I learned like way back in high school videography class. That's something they taught us about.
Yeah.
With where we used VHS tapes. So
nice.
Dating.
It's kind of like how we do the video for this. We've got a video of each of us. It'd be good if we had like, if we're all in a room and there was a group video as well, instead of the Brady Bunch part. So,
yeah, for sure. I think this conversation, I feel like, is indicative of a common dynamic that I find with Grant, is that Grant has these like insights a lot of time, which are correct and which usually take me like a little while to come around to agreeing with and like realizing why they're correct. And I'm thinking about when you and Adam both really wanted me to make a shop tour video, and you were adamant that I make it the first shop tour of, I think it was 2021 at that point.
Yeah, that's right. And I was going to try and beat you.
And I was like, why does it matter? Like, I was just so like kind of annoyed, being like, oh, I don't get it. But in thinking about it, like I was thinking about this recently because I might do a shop tour at some point. And I was thinking about it like, yeah, the newest year is exciting to people. It's like, oh, the 2024 Toyota Tacoma is coming out. You want to see the very newest thing. And if it's the first day of the year, then it probably will be the first one that comes out. That's how I interpret it now, at least, is that high year number being exciting to people.
That's what I was trying to tell you.
Yeah. I don't think you articulated that, though.
I may not have. Someone could go back, and I think it was, we talked about it on the podcast, so someone can go back and look at, I think it was probably the goals, like episode 34, goals for clamping in 2021. That must have been it, eh? Or was it at the end of 2021 and going into 2022?
No, it was at the end of 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was still in
my... feels like yesterday.
I was still in the crowded kitchen apartment at that point. That was like right after I made the Art Deco puzzle box.
Right. And you almost made it. That's the other thing. You almost made it. You were so close. It could have been the one. Anyways.
I don't even remember when did I publish it in 2020 or did I wait until 2021?
I don't know.
Okay. I'll find it while you guys continue talking.
All I know is your hair was much shorter.
Yeah. I don't think there was a YouTube video on my channel where my hair is longer than this.
Oh, probably not. No.
No, I grew it out. I grew it out when Eden was studying abroad in Singapore, our third year of university. And if you go to like the third video on my channel, my hair might be longer than it was now. It looked very different because I styled it different.
Well, with Morley's hair now coming into the equation, no, there's I don't want to actually talk about Morley's hair. I have nothing to say about it.
Okay, wait, before we move on. So I published it on the last day of 2020. I published it on December 31st.
Right. Yes, I remember that. You were just like, I just need to get it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny.
It's really funny because the amount of times Morley has said to me, "What's the rush?"
Yeah, I mean that's a common thing we all do. It's like you point out the flaws in others that are in yourself.
Yeah.
And so when I say that to you, that's me projecting in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do that with my kids so much. So much. It's It is 100. It is the worst. I say it, and I go, "Well, that's me. They're doing that because that's me." And I go, "Right, but you don't do that. I do that. Don't do that. Learn from my mistakes. Stop picking at all your scabs." Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I know dropping names is in the flaw system that humans are, but I wanted to ask you, Morley, who was your favorite guest that you got to speak
I wanted to
with?
ask the same thing.
On Clamp,
Mm-hmm.
I think the conversation with David Picciuto was really interesting and inspiring.
Yeah.
That is sticking. I mean, obviously the conversation with Jimmy DiResta led to the whole name change and everything. And that was our first big guest, and it was super exciting. But I think I was definitely more comfortable speaking to David Picciuto just because I had so much more experience speaking with people by that point.
Well, it's like 2 years apart, right?
Yeah. And Austin, I think. I think Austin always has really good insights about like running a small business. And he's not like afraid to like point anything out. He always just has like a good thing to say in the moment.
Yeah.
So those two are sticking out to me right now. What about you guys?
So just to confirm, your favorite guest ever on Clamp wasn't the first ever guest on Clamp.
Oh, which was me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's. Anyways, when I think about, it's hard to pinpoint down just one. I know I really enjoyed talking with Jesse Ratfink from Instructables, because I think that was the first unconventional guest we reached out to. I've never heard her on another podcast. I barely hear Instructables like on other media, and I really felt like it was an interesting perspective to get people in the maker community, but also out of the maker community. Like they're like an infrastructure for the maker community, if anything,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was a really interesting conversation with them. I feel like we got so much better at interviewing people or having conversations with people that I do think, like, looking at the more recent guests that we've had, I think we got better conversations out of them. So it's hard to say that, like David Picciuto, I really enjoyed that conversation, but I also think I got better. Bob Claggett, we had I think better ideas and better interviewing techniques the longer we've got, even like Hard Work, Good Luck with Brian House. I really enjoyed that because I came at it from a completely different angle than I normally do. I normally am like super researched, know exactly what something means and know everything about someone. And I knew about Brian House. He seemed like a good guy. It could have gone another way. You never know, right? Halfway through the interview, we could have been like, right? But no, it was awesome because I just didn't feel like, I felt like if there was going to be a problem, I would know, right? I would just know. Enough people know him; they would say something, right? That kind of thing. But I was like, no, Brian House. Everyone who I've talked to says he's awesome. I really enjoyed that conversation. But like I said, it's hard when I look back. There's been so many great guests. It's hard to put one out. One thing I do regret is that you guys often had these awesome friends that we have on while I was off.
Mm-hmm.
So for all you guys out there.
Yeah, like that's when we had Mark Daner on, right? When you weren't here.
You had Mark Daner, you had Andrew Zito one time, you had Dean Duplantis, Ben Nyman. Yeah. We had Andrew Zito on really early, and then we had him on again later.
Right.
I think the first time he was on, I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Same as I was never on when Zach Builds was on either.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That one was really interesting, and also just fun to find out that when I was in that apartment, Zach lived a block away from me.
Yeah. It was like,
Crazy.
I think we heard the same police sirens in the background.
I think that's how he realized. I think in the after show, like I heard it in his mic. I'm like, where are you in Toronto exactly?
Yeah.
That's gold.
So,
Well, from my point of view, I think that the guest that I got the most out of, I agree, is Brian House. I feel like he just is very knowledgeable in everything he had to talk about. But when we first started this podcast, and ever since I wanted to start a podcast, my dream was to have Bob on. So I have to say Bob.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob was a really good one. He's
Yeah.
he's such a nice guy.
Mhm.
So I know it's probably gauche to talk about things that are negative, and I don't want to talk about it in a negative way, but are there any episodes that you go back and go, that's one I would skip if you want to start from the beginning?
Who's your least favorite guest?
No, not guest. Episodes.
I know. I was kidding.
Well, there's the one we didn't publish, right? Which was like
I was going to say
around
there's the one we
100.
didn't publish. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an unreleased episode out there, which actually I don't even know if everything is stored on the Zencaster drives. So technically we could go back and get it if we wanted to.
It's on Patreon.
Wait. I know the bad episode. It was the I'm sorry, Adam. It was the beer cap trivia. I feel like that just didn't work with our format.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we decided to make it a Patreon only.
Oh, did we? That whole episode?
Yeah, that whole episode is Patreon. The one that we didn't release is Patreon only.
There was definitely some funny moments in there. But and for those who don't know what we're talking about, some beer brand in Australia has ask your friend. What's up?
It's not the beer cap trivia episode that's Patreon only. It was the one that we didn't release is on Patreon.
Oh, okay. So the beer cap episode is live, and some Australian beer brand on the bottom of the beer caps, it has fun questions to ask your friends, would you rather type questions, just conversation starters. And I think if we were a comedy podcast, it would have worked. But we're just not that quick, and we're not that comedic.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a lot of I don't know, and just long pauses and realizing a good response too late. That was a good learning experience, maybe this isn't the format for us.
Yeah, it definitely kind of showed us that we aren't the kind of podcast that can just do anything. We need to actually follow what's the word? Follow who we are. Yeah, follow who we are. We're not just we're not here to just do nothing.
Right.
We need a topic and be entertaining.
I was surprised you didn't say the weather podcast, because I wanted to talk about the weather as a very early topic, and you vetoed it until one day you just couldn't come up with something different, and it was pretty early on. I think it was episode 31. We finally talked about the weather, and then I think we ended up having a good conversation about how the weather affects your mood and all that stuff. But
yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think it did end up being a good conversation. I remember having that feeling of oh, I was wrong. And I think I didn't want to do it because it was oh, this is everyone talks about this. Everyone talks about how the weather affects your mood. But maybe that was another learning experience of just because something has been talked about before doesn't mean that we can't have an interesting take on it from all of our own experiences.
Definitely. Well, is there, we've talked a little bit about the positives, a little bit of the negatives. Is there a key moment in the 120-ish episodes where you go, that's the one that changed something?
For my creative journey?
For anything, right? Can be anything. Doesn't have to for your creative journey. Maybe for obviously you mentioned it, Jimmy Dressa saying just why are you using this Yelrom? What the hell is that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, and then you change your name, but you know, there could be something else that you kind of went, that was like an insightful episode. If there was one episode that you'd say like, that's the one that I gleaned the most insight from.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of a weird answer, but one that comes to mind is just when we did that brainstorming episode on air. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just because I hadn't done that kind of brainstorming in my own creative work before. Like I had done it in group projects or like when working at the Steam project or something, but I never really like sat down and fleshed out my own ideas with other people. So I think that I carried that strategy forwards a lot. Now I do a lot more brainstorming. I actually realized today when I was walking Abby, I don't know if anyone wouldn't know this at this point, but Abby is my dog.
And Abby is my wife.
Yeah. Not intentional.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been listening to music and podcasts a little too much while out on walks recently and haven't been having that quiet time to just really like let my mind wander. I had like 4 good ideas today. It was amazing. It was a great day. And I think a lot of it was just because I had a fair amount of nothing in my ears while driving and walking.
Right. So if you're driving and you got a good idea, what do? Just yell at Siri to take a note?
No, I used to get scared that I would forget ideas, but I've come to realize that I don't. And so if it's in the car, I'll just start like I'll go down the rabbit hole. I'll start like planning it out. And then once I stop, I'll make a note in my phone. It was funny. I don't know if it was in the pre-show, but you were saying like, oh, I'm going to write that down and then lose that piece of paper. That's exactly the reason why I just put notes in my phone because it's always there. What I usually do is I make a reminder because I like checking things off of a checklist. And then I transfer it from a reminder into like a note on my computer and save it as a document of like title ideas or something else.
You know, it's just occurred to me because I do this a lot. I'll be driving to work, get an idea, can't touch my phone because I'm driving, and then get to work and realize that I've forgotten everything. Why don't I have a notepad with a pencil in my car? There's no law that says I can't write on a piece of paper while I'm driving.
I mean, if I really want to record it, I'll just ask Siri like to make a note.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Could do that. Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So I can't remember who said it, but someone said, and it might have been Jocko, and that's who it reminds me of, but it may not have been. If the idea is good, it might have been Jimmy. That's the other person. And I know now we've mentioned Jimmy enough times that people are going to give us crap for going through another episode of mentioning Jimmy. But I think someone said, if it's a good idea, it'll come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't a good idea, it's gone. Don't worry about it. It's one of those. I can't remember if it was Jimmy or Jocko, but that's who it's coming to me as who would say something like, if it's a good idea, it'll come back. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah. And unless I find it's like the idea is about how to say something. If it's a wording idea, yes. If it's like, oh, this is how I want to do an intro, this is how I want to make a title, then I really make sure I record it in the moment because I find those are really easy to forget.
Yes. So I have a notes app on my phone, and when we're preparing for a guest, I write down the things I want to mention, right? So it's like David Bajuda, I'm like, I need to mention the penny, the Canadian penny. I need to mention I need to make something in there, right? Like, Steve House, I wanted to do like Top Gear introing the Stig, but change it into the Steve because everyone goes like, hello, my name is Steve. They get those stickers at Maker Central. So I was like, this would be a perfect time to try and make a top. So I have like a little running notes thing that I can, and then I weave all those together into an intro sometimes. But yeah.
Nice.
Well, there's one other thing that I think, or at least from my perspective, that was really fun that we did, which was the Clamp Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
We had early on talked about doing a challenge, very early, 2020. And we didn't do a challenge until 2022 because I think we're all on the same page that we didn't want to just do a challenge for doing a challenge sake. We wanted to have a really great idea. We wanted to have a solid listener base, and we wanted to like give something back to the community at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wanted
The challenge wasn't to help grow us or to, benefit us in any way. It was more to give back to our community.
Yeah.
So we wanted to have a community first that we could actually give back to.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Morley?
Yeah, I'm glad
this is your final chance to say anything.
I'm glad we waited because that idea was such a good one. It worked in the podcast really, really well. And I think it had a great balance of structure and freeformness. Some people might say it had too much freedom, but I think it had the perfect amount. And it seemed just like it had a great reception. Like people had a lot of fun with it. We had a great cross section of projects, like functional, artistic, out of the box, everything. It was really cool. It was very satisfying. I think I don't really think we could have asked for much better of an outcome.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Before Grant moves on, I want to ask Morley, now that you're not going to be a host and you could win, are you going to enter into Clamp Challenge 2023?
If we do it.
Yeah.
If we do it.
Can I... Oh, never mind. I'm not even going to say it. I was going to say, can I know about it a couple months in advance? But knowing Grant, that's exactly how the timeline you did for the Clamp Challenge this year.
Right. And if you continue to be a patron, then you might get the advance notice.
It is. I'm excited to be a listener, not having been on the episodes. I think it's going to be a very interesting experience. Yeah. Like the 3 episodes or 4 episodes when I wasn't here, you guys had Brian House and some other guests on. That was always very fun to listen to.
Yeah, it was the same thing for me. It was so interesting to hear you guys having a conversation without me.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. So I think one of the last things I wanted to ask is there anything you haven't done that you potentially might have wanted to have done? Or any topics you might have wanted to talk about that you didn't get a chance to, or anything like that?
There was one topic I put in our shared lists a while ago, which I feel like has some legs, and does make you too materialistic. And I think that's one of those topics that I never really boiled down. And because I think it touches on a lot of things. I think there's a part of me that wishes I could live a minimalistic sort of digital nomad lifestyle, that I could do the van life thing or live out of a backpack. But the fact of the matter is the stuff that I do takes a lot of physical things. And I think part of me mourns that in some weird way, even though I'm really happy with what I'm doing. It's this other life that I don't have that I sort of romanticize. So there's that part, but there's also just through making things you need to acquire a lot of stuff. There's a lot of buying and turnover of goods. And there's this big focus on physical things. And I think also in coming up with that topic, it was comparing to people who are in a very people focused profession, like the caring professions, like a teacher or social worker, which Eden does. And, sometimes making you get existential when you're you spend a day thinking so hard about epoxy cure times or the best way to make a joint. And then you think about all the bigger things going on in the world. So again, there's a ton there that's sort of not pinned down, but I think it could have made for a good episode.
I can see. I think this is the problem with our often text-based conversations that we would have between the episodes, is that you kind of put it out there was a one-liner, maybe even a paragraph, but because we didn't really have a chance to to flesh it out. Like now that you're explaining it in more detail, I think that could have been a really good topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of problems with text-based conversations. I have a bunch of friends who will use voice memos a lot. I don't know if does Discord have a built-in like voice message function?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have some friends who like most use that more so than text themselves. But a lot of times that's the way to go.
Do not do that with me. I absolutely hate it. Some people who do it, I hate it. I'm like, I then have to find a quiet place and that I can turn up the phone and hold it to my ear, so I make sure I hear everything that you say. There's some people who do it, and I'm like, oh, thanks, but I would really prefer if I could just hit the transcribe button and it would pop up with what you said. Because that's what I do. I do all my, like, I don't actually type out half the things I send, and if you read it, you'd know that they're very voice-directed text, and that's how I can write out a lot more. Because I agree, typing is passé.
Well, and it's also like people, and especially generationally, there's so many connotations about like what certain types of texts mean.
Right.
And I feel like everyone's just getting misunderstood all the time.
Right. I watched a TikTok today where the person was like, I got fired, and I'm sure it was fake, but whatever. They were like, I got fired because I had an hashtag FUP. And on TikTok, that means it's the For You page. So they're trying to get onto the For You page by using that hashtag. And their HR people said, it means fuck you people. and apparently they got fired over it. So because it was like a thing about their colleagues. I don't know. It's probably fake. It's the internet, but that's one of those things where if you don't know the context, you can often get confused. I remember reading about a lawyer or a guy who was in court, and he said, "I want my lawyer, dog," and the judge told him, like, you can't have a dog lawyer. And I was like, no, and like, well, that's what you asked for. Oh, there's the court transcript. I've read that one. It was like a showing why people with different cultures are ending up in prison disproportionately without representation because they use slang that a 70-year-old white judge has never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of things being fake on the internet, I found out something this morning that kind of ruined something for me that is big from our childhood. Did you block your ears if you don't want to hear, but did you know that Leroy Jenkins was completely fake?
Really?
I never knew that. Yeah, the whole thing was faked. Because, like before he runs in, they're talking about like all these like numbers and all this stuff of like what they're going to do and everything. Apparently none of it makes sense. It's all just like complete babble to make it sound like it was a more important mission than it was. And you can just tell that it's completely fake.
Yeah, it makes sense. When I remember watching the video, and I always went like, "There's no one would do this." Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, like honestly, if you did that, like the people that you were with would kill you. Like they would be so pissed. Like people back then like were so nerdy and like their missions but yeah.
I feel like the South Park World of Warcraft episode was like directly inspired by that video.
Yeah. There's been so many.
Yeah.
Iconic.
Well, I think at this point we may want to move on to the last chance for Morley to thank all the patrons, and I'm going to hand it over to him to do it. Put him on the spot.
All right. Well, good thing I have
this is your chance.
Good thing I have this note open, which I'm gonna read. I don't really feel like I'm being put on the spot very much. I have the information right here. I'd like to thank the people who support this show on Patreon, especially our F-Clamp level supporters: Brent Jarvis from Clean Cut Woodworking, Vincent Ferrari from Digitally Creative, Austin from the High Caliber Craftsman, Scott Oram from Dad It Yourself DIY, Joe Herdina, and Lawrence from Maritime Knife Supply. Everyone who supports the show on Patreon gets access to the pre-show and the after show. They also get a handmade leather keychain that was made by me, but will in the future be made by Grant.
Mm-hmm. So Lawrence is our latest patron, and he is getting the final Morley made leather keychain.
Yes, sir. And yeah, to learn more about that, you can head on over to patreon.com/clamp. Clampmendations.
Oof. My Clampmendations for this week is a little bit of a cop-out because I honestly didn't have one, and I've been watching a lot of YouTube that I watch all the time that I've already recommended or isn't worth recommending. And that is House of the Dragon. My wife and I just finished Series 1. Apparently Season 2 has already been confirmed, which is pretty cool. I will say the show somehow is very slow, but progresses very quickly at the same time. Like between episode 2 and 3 is like a 3-year gap. It's like episode 2 ends and then episode 3 begins 3 years later. But somehow the show, each episode is so slow. Like the story is really slow. But it's a really great show. My wife and I now have restarted watching Game of Thrones because we have nothing to watch. So yeah, we're going to be watching that for like the next year because it's the longest show ever.
I'm going to recommend everyone go check out Austin from the High Caliber Craftsman. He's got 2 different Instagram accounts. So he's got the High Caliber Craftsman, and that's if you want to buy a pen. Basically is what he makes. He makes pens and pencils, scribing knives, something like that. Carbide things. I don't know. Go check out his website, highcalibercraftsman.com, I think. And then he's got High Caliber Craftsman builds. And the builds is the more interesting stuff that doesn't fit into pen making. So go check out both of those and buy a pen. It is they're great. They make great gifts.
All right. I want to clampmendate a local woodworker in my new town who I met recently. His name's David, and he runs the Northern Joinery. They do pretty wild furniture pieces, a lot of which, looking through their Instagram, is not actually on there. But if you go on their Instagram at the Northern Joinery, you'll see kind of the breadth of things that they do. A lot of like big monumental solid wood furniture, a lot of epoxy details. Yeah, just like really amazing work. And I'm really happy that I got to meet him and have a inspirational woodworker in my town.
Nice. Well, at this point, I would have liked to have given Morley a single last review to read in a ridiculous thing. But since we don't have an extra review, I'm just going to say, hey, Morley, can you say something in a Scottish accent?
Ooh. Well, Eden has been listening to all of the Outlander books, so maybe I've picked some up by
there you go.
osmosis. I'm just trying to.
How about you do our outro with a Scottish accent?
Ooh, that's good.
All right. Then we'll save the outro for you for later, Adam. And just so y'all know, we'll still read all the reviews that come in, but there's not going to be any fun accents because I'm not committing to do that, and Adam can only do Australian. But instead, we're going to move on to some of our listeners' favorite segments. It's Adam's Slang of the Week. For those that don't know, Adam gets a slang word from one of our listeners. They send it directly to him, not to the Clampcast Instagram, directly to him. And he gives it to us, and we try, Morley and I, and whoever's going to be next, tries to guess what this slang is.
Yeah. If you do want to send through yours, it's Make a Mackie on Instagram. My word this week is from Jeremy Speece, and it is an Italian slang. The word is gavone.
Gavone?
I hope I'm saying that right.
Oh.
Gavone.
I feel like I'm on the Italian side of TikTok a lot. Like I get these people like doing funny family dynamics, funny Italian family dynamics, and I feel like a gavon is like it's something you would call a gavon. It's like something you would call someone. It's like, oh, you gavon, you friggin' gavon.
It's definitely so usually described as a behavior more than a person as much.
Okay. Is it like you nincompoop, like you stupid person?
It is Gavone. So it's spelled Gavone, but it says pronunciation wise it's Gah space VOWN.
Gavone. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know if it matters how it's said, but
well, if I had heard it before, it would, because the spelling and the pronunciation are obviously different. I would say it's I think it's like that guy's making a fool of himself. That's what I would say. What's the answer? I
mean, you're kind of right, but not. It's a bit more specific. So it is Italian slang for someone who eats a lot or pigs out. Like, look at this Gavon going for his third slice.
I wish that
the origin is cafone means a boar in standard Italian.
Oh,
nice.
Like a boar, like a pig.
So Jeremy gave me a lot of information about this word, so that was good.
Nice. Love it.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I want to thank TF Turning for the theme song. You can find all of us. Oh, no. Morley, take it away in a Scottish accent.
You can find all of us at Maker Mac. Oh, it's always so hard when I have the headphones on. I swear if I'm just walking
I have a Scottish name.
Micah Mackey.
Another one.
Adam Mackey. I don't know. Grant is the Grant Alexander, and I'm it's gone. Morley Kurt.
Good job. And you can find us all collectively on the Clampstagram, the Clamp Tube, and the Clamp Book. I did see someone had reached out on, I think Damien reached out, and another new person that I didn't recognize the name reached out on Facebook to say hello. So thank you for saying hello. Yeah.
Yes, he comments on my YouTube videos.
Oh, okay, cool. If you want to reach out on Facebook, honestly, you can try. Facebook doesn't give me notifications for the other pages, so it's just random if I happen to see it. So if I don't respond in a long time, that's why. You want to say anything as a parting message?
Well, I was gonna say, I feel like last week or the week before you were saying that if you want to speak to us directly, then people should definitely use Facebook. And now you're telling people that you actually never look at it.
No, I don't, because Facebook sucks.
Agreed. No, I just want to say it's been a great ride. I'm really excited that you guys are continuing the podcast, and I look forward to listening. We've had some great conversations. I'm so happy with all the people I've been able to connect with through doing this podcast, and I'm excited to see where you guys go from here.
Well, thank you for agreeing on short notice after episode 3. We kind of like threw this at you, and you ran with it for like 2+ years.
2 years.
Yeah. Like taking over for Richard, who was our Hawaii counterpart, who just the timelines, the Hawaii, Australia, and Eastern Standard Time, just it's not those
it's hard
3 time zones.
Yeah, 2 time zones. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for everything that you've given to this podcast.
Yeah.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to listening next week or the week after.
All right. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.